You're muted, Richard.
I was saying that actually you can record WebEx and then encrypted meetings. Just request to your local machine instead of to the cloud.
Okay, I see. Nice.
Did we figure out recording?
This is being recorded already. And Harold, you're muted. So.
Yeah.
All
right, do we want to wait?
Recording us all.
Okay. If you do not wish to be recorded, please state so now. Otherwise, do we want to wait 2 minutes for more people, or do we want to get started?
I think we can get started.
Okay.
Everyone who's going to present is here, and
let's see who's doing slides. Let's see, I can do slides if you want.
we can.
Okay.
We can present the slides if you.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. All right, so welcome to the April 22nd, 2025 WEBRTC working group meeting. Only members of the working group can make substantive contributions. We abide by the W3C patent policy. And our next meeting will be May 20th. And here's all our online information about our meetings, our latest drafts. We need to have a scribe. Do we have any volunteers for scribing?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Tom. So this meeting operates under the WTC Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. We're all passionate, so let's keep it cordial and professional. Next slide. So you're probably familiar, we're using the Zoom control, sorry, Meet controls in the chat instead of on IRC. So please wait for microphone access before speaking and abide by the queue. Document status, posting within the W3C repo does not imply adoption, which requires a call for adoption on the mailing list. And editor's drafts do not represent consensus, but working drafts. But drafts do imply consensus once they're confirmed by a call for consensus on the mailing list. Next slide. So the issues we have for today, we're going to have some media capture issues discussions, and then for the first 40 minutes, and then switching to WebRTC encoded transform, and then finally on S-frame. And there'll be a 2-minute warning given for time control. And I think our first issue is media capture main. I think you have the first issue. Is that right?
Yeah. Thanks. So this issue I think was already discussed. I was not there, but anyway, there has been some activity on GitHub, and I was thinking that maybe we could try to make some progress. Maybe not solve the whole issue, or maybe do it, but at least try to make some progress. So, what's the purpose of requiring a successful GAM call before enemy devices? So it's a privacy protection rule. We know from statistics that enemy devices was used a lot by websites. A lot of these websites that would never do any capture. So what we want is to ensure that a website is actually able to get your up-to-date list of devices that may change over time if they are actually trying to capture. So that's why the spec is currently stating that, yeah, we need a get user media call to succeed, or at least there should be a get user media call, and the user should agree to proceed. But I think that Chrome tried to implement this rule and hit some issues. In particular, some websites show device speakers when capture permission is granted before capture starts. So they are legit websites, and they want user to be able to capture. But when they see that the user already granted permission for permission policy, meaning that the user is trusting the website, and in that case, the website may show the list of devices without calling get user media initially. And there were a bunch of websites that were listed in the GitHub issue, and I found out that Zoom, for instance, for camera was one of these websites. I don't know others. Honestly, I haven't seen proofs for other websites, but there may be more. So can we try to mitigate the web compat issue while preserving the privacy benefits? And that's what I try to think about. And there's a proposal. Next slide. And the proposal is that if the web page is capturing already, it's fine to expose capture devices. And we could relax it so that if the web page is capturing microphone, then we could allow to expose cameras. And conversely, if the website is capturing, is using the camera, then we could expose microphones as well. The reason is that in both cases, the web page called get user media successfully is okay with privacy indicators. So user is seeing that the website is doing like some privacy sensitive activity, which is capturing either microphone or camera. So preventing the website to get camera or microphone in that case is not getting us a lot. It's still getting us some, but it's not getting a lot. And so my privacy evaluation is that it's okay to relax it, this rule as is, and it's helping the web compatibility. For instance, it's helping Zoom. I don't know whether it would help other websites, but what I know is that websites tend to eagerly request microphone access for a bunch of reasons. And so if they're doing that very eagerly, then there's no issue with listing microphone devices in the picker. And then with this rule, there would be no issue with exposing camera to expose a camera picker also. So I'm hopeful that, so I have two questions. First question is, what do people think about this proposal in terms of web compatibility and privacy? And if they like it, is this proposal good enough to close the issue? Thoughts? Janivar?
Yes, so thank you for explaining that. The proposal is a little bit different than I thought it was going to be. In that, well, first I should say that I think a lot of video conferencing sites will usually ask for a camera, and it's very common to ask for camera and microphone in a lobby or something before you let into the meeting. I think where Zoom came up is that Zoom was pretty early in trying to let users in without permission to camera and microphone, which makes sense in large meetings, and I think it's something we should encourage. So I think this is a good use case to solve, and that we need to wait for websites to have good user interface for all their users, and not necessarily tying it to previous interaction or permission. So the thing I'm a bit concerned about here is when you explained it, I'm not sure about still tying it to permission because all browsers now support one-time permissions. So I would love for us to try to preserve users that give, there are many reasons to give one-time permission. Maybe it's the first time you use a web page and the next time you'll persist it. But some users may prefer to never persist permission and always like to have sleep better knowing that their microphone and camera cannot turn on without the press of a button.
So to be clear, you're proposing to further relax the rule.
Yes, I would like a proposal that doesn't just solve the zoom problem in Chrome, but solves it in Firefox by default as well.
So you would say expose camera devices if the web page is using microphone, basically.
So that would be one idea. If we're not, so yes, I think that's, if we're comfortable with that, that's one way solution. Another one would be, if we're not comfortable with that, we'd have to look at something a bit more clever, perhaps. That the issue is, how do you detect whether a website is a video conferencing website or just some random website that where you scanned the QR code in the past, or you recorded a voice greeting or something like that, but you're not fully a video conferencing website. I think for the web conferencing website use case, I feel we all might be comfortable with sharing camera and microphone because it fits the use case well. It's kind of expected when you go to a video conferencing site. It might be less expected by users on other websites. So we'd have to make some tricks where maybe if you've used camera and microphone in the past, then the user agent could be more confident that this is probably a video conferencing site, and the user's expectation might be to share camera and microphone. So I would propose either always exposing camera devices when microphone is in use, or put a requirement that maybe a user agent could say, if we're confident that they've used both camera and microphone in the past, then expose cameras.
If I can summarize your answer, you're saying this proposal is okay, but I want to do more, basically. Is that fair?
I don't like that it's tied to camera permission.
Okay.
Because that creates a split between, that means that in order to have a full website experience, you have to persist permission. And that leaves users of one-time permission to be a second class of users.
But usually what will happen is, I guess, either you have one-time permission for microphone and camera, or you have microphone and camera which are persistent as well. So I believe websites will have to deal with one-time permission, and we'll update to that. That's my understanding. We can help them, but there it's really no.
Well, I think what we've seen over the years is that a lot of websites have solved it with trying to escalate permission to persistent and basically doing an early triage where users of one-time permission are treated as first-time users, and they're often given a slow lane, a separate workflow to prod them to persist permission again, because that makes web developers' lives a lot easier if they can just assume that returning users have persistent permission. So is there a reason why you feel that relying on the camera permission would be beneficial?
I mean, I'm trying to solve an issue and not open new holes. In general, so the rule that you're describing is the rule that we had in the past in Safari. But we got reports that were saying, hey, I granted microphone, and now I see that website has camera as a list of cameras. Is that expected, and so on. So yeah, I was trying to fix one issue, and so that we could have all websites all user agents actually doing like the same role, which is get user media first and then animate devices. And getting there is the first step, and it will help interop and compatibility. So the idea of this website has used in the past a camera, and now it's using microphone, so it's sort of okay. That's a bit better, but I don't know whether we can specify something like that. So my understanding is that we will come with some, if we go down that road, we will come with some hand wavy specification, and the user agents will be able to do basically a bit whatever they want. So with that role, but
sorry,
maybe
I'm
that's
taking
fine.
up a lot of time, but would it be possible to, what if we added user agents may expose camera devices, even if camera permission is prompt and they have a signal that camera has been used in the past or something? I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I might be fine with that. Yeah. Guido?
Well, I think this proposal is an improvement over the existing text of the spec, since it relaxes things. I think it would be surprising to expose cameras without camera permission. That would be like surprising to users, but if it's a may, I'm not completely opposed. I would just not implement it that way, especially, and if you're saying that the decision is if get user media was used in the past, well, that's basically what the system permission is. But the question I have is whether this is like a successful get user media call or active capture, because the way you have it in the slide sounds more like you have to be using the microphone, not just.
Oh, yeah. So we're ending at we are going to PR territory. Yeah, it would be a successful gun call, meaning that the website's called get user media, and it is granted permission to move forward. If the camera capture is failing somehow and the get user media is rejected somehow, there might be edge cases like that. But I think that we can find, the current spec is dealing with them, so I do not change there. So when I say using microphone, it's in the usual case where get user media call is granted and successful.
Yeah.
In the edge case, I would say, yeah, the get user media call was allowed, basically.
Yeah, I think it's an improvement, so I wouldn't be opposed to amending the spec to include this, since this is better, and this would certainly solve the Zoom use case, which is like the most high-profile breakage that we currently have. But I would say that permission, the criteria to persist permissions or not is something that's up to the user agent. So I think we shouldn't specify that. Like a user agent can use any logic they want, as complex as they want, like looking at the history or not to decide if the permission is revoked or not, or remains persistent or not. And I think, like I said, I would be okay with this change, but I wouldn't close the issue until we can verify that this doesn't cost any further breakage. Right now, until we have more information, the proper way to fix the issue would be just to rely on the permissions, which is how it was before. And the reason non-VC websites were using it was that we were exposing device IDs before, which is not the case anymore, and no browser does it anymore. But until not so long ago, those were exposed, and they were basically, in some cases, even super cookies. They were not even deleted when you deleted cookies. So my suspicion is that that this was an overcorrection in the spec, that is no longer necessary because user agents are no longer exposing IDs that can be used for tracking if you don't have permission. And user agents are free to implement any logic as sophisticated as they want to implement permission. But since we don't have consensus on just relying on the permission, I think we can land this change, but keep the issue open until we gain field experience and see if this is enough to break all the issues.
Okay, sounds good. If you have other websites that you know might benefit or still not be fixed with that, please comment on the GitHub issue. Then it might be useful. Dom.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered this, Guido, but just to be clear, when you say you're comfortable with this change, you're also saying this is something as an implementer you would feel confident experimenting with to get implementation experience.
Yeah, we would be willing to experiment with it to learn how it works.
Yanivar?
Yeah, so for Firefox, we have a web compatibility issue here. If we look at the Zoom use case, if you have a first-time user of Zoom and they grant microphone, you have the problem in both Chrome and Firefox and Safari that you can't necessarily list your cameras yet. But next visit, you can. And this is where we end up with a fork between our users, those who persist permission and those that don't. They're going to have different, they're not going to both be able to have the same user interface. So when I ask for the user agent may, I'm happy to work on language that can limit, I would agree that it's not great to have the user agent be able to do whatever it wants in that case. So I'm happy to work on the PR to be very specific about what it can do there, if that helps.
Okay, and hopefully we can, for instance, we know Zoom people and so on, so we can maybe talk with them and see how we can adjust things as well. Maybe they can update a little bit their websites, and well, we can certainly try to discuss this with them. Guido?
Yeah, can you clarify this thing about Zoom and returning users? Because I think what Zoom is doing is just calling enumerate devices, and if they get nothing, they don't show the cameras, and normally they get nothing if there's no permission to use the camera. So, so I don't think it has anything to do with returning user or not. I mean, if the user is a returning user but has never given permission to use the camera, they won't be able to list any cameras. And if it's a first-time user and they, if they don't get asked, if they don't try to use the camera, they won't show the cameras either. But the only way that they see the cameras is if they ask for them. So if they ask to enable the camera, and then in the same session, then the cameras will show up after they authorize the camera.
Well, yeah. So what I'm thinking of is if I stick in Chrome then, because Chrome has one-time permissions now. If the user picks allow every time I visit its website, I would like them to get the same experience as if they said allow once, because that would be very interoperable. So across browsers, I mean, I think Safari doesn't even have a way to persist. So I think over the years we've seen that websites haven't always been great at navigating all the different browser behaviors. So if we can get parity, one way to do that would be if user agents may also reveal camera if they have confidence that the user used camera in the past, which is slightly different from, it's a bit more lax than, and I think that's fine for because we're talking about exposing devices here. And we decided long ago that end users, we couldn't have a permission prompt just for that. So we're piggybacking on something that's much more serious, which is camera and microphone access, which I think was a good move. But I think that might give us a little flexibility here, I hope.
Guido?
Yeah, I don't think it's reasonable that we should try to give users that don't give permission the same experience to users that express trust in the application by giving persistent permission. I think it's reasonable and to allow using the permission API to give an improved experience to users who have explicitly expressed trust in the application. And like forbidding that, I don't think it's something we should aim for.
Well, yeah. Let's try to finish this discussion in 3 minutes. Yanivar?
Well, I just wanted to say historically, there's a chicken and egg here problem here, is that in order to use the user's camera and microphone, there's an impulse to want to let the user select what camera and microphone they're going to use. But in order to do that, you need to already have camera and microphone permission. So it's the cart before the horse. So historically, we solved it by exposing device IDs after a single use. And the only difference was the only reliance on permission at that point was whether you would get labels or not. So we cleaned that up in a way that unfortunately didn't solve, it wasn't as interoperable as I think we would like. So we suffered a lot of, in Firefox, we suffered a lot of bug reports from users who have an inferior experience because websites rely on permission models in the ways that isn't really interoperable. So I would say permissions query in some ways returns implementation-defined behavior. And I don't think websites have always been good at that. So that's our motivation here, is to give user agents some chance of competing with the workflow where users persist in and get a good experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to summarize, what I see is that this PR is ready, like this issue is ready for PR, or at least there's a partial solution. So we should do a PR along the lines of a proposal with a may, with relaxing further with a may, and clarifying that it's not actual usage of microphone, but it's actual calling of get user media and user allowed the call to proceed. And with that, we hope we can make progress. Okay, sounds good to me. Next issue, I guess.
Yeah, that's me. So I want to talk about supporting multiple echo cancellation modes. So what we have seen is that sometimes different applications want to use echo cancellation differently, depending on their use case. So we have seen that sometimes applications want to cancel only remote participants, but not all the local audio. We have seen reports, for example, of there are use cases where you have a music teacher and a student who are communicating over a peer connection, and the student is playing an instrument with some accompaniment played by either the web application or some other local application. And the application on the student side wants echo cancellation to cancel the audio coming from the teacher, but it doesn't want to cancel the accompaniment because they want that audio to reach the teacher to properly hear all the music that the student is producing. On the other hand, we have other applications that are very privacy sensitive, and they want to cancel absolutely everything. For example, even if there is a screen reader that's enabled, say, by the operating system or some other application, they would like to cancel that too. So that they want to cancel absolutely everything. And I guess there are applications in the middle that would be okay with that are not like super picky about what gets canceled. So what I propose is to have 4 values for echo cancellation. So to have one, we could call it private, which is to cancel all the audio. One that would be remote, that would be like cancel only pure connections. Then a default, which is let the user agent decide what to cancel, which would be equivalent to the current true. And off to disable it, which would be equivalent to the current false. And then, well, there are different ways we could implement this. One possibility is to introduce an echo cancellation mode in them, and then change the echo cancellation constraint and settings and so on to the type to be echo cancellation mode or Boolean. So that would be one way to do it. There could be other ways. But my main question to the working group would be if the group thinks that it would be good to better support these use cases by supporting more than 2 modes for echo cancellation. Yes, Juan, you.
Yeah, so I guess a prototype would be nice. My feeling is that it's a bit odd to say. I wonder whether we discussed this topic in the past and whether at some point there was a proposal to say, hey, this source, this audio element should not be taken into account by echo cancellation, and this other audio source can be taken into account for echo cancellation, which might be more complex to implement. At least we would have a different API, which is, use echo cancellation or not. And this source may be used, this source may not be used, and so on.
Yeah, I think the problem I see with that is that it doesn't necessarily solve the problem, because sometimes the audio is not coming from the application. It could come from, say, another web application or from outside the application. It could come from a native application where you don't have control to say, hey, please don't cancel that. So I think it would be more complex and wouldn't really solve like all the use cases. I think it would be interesting to pursue that, but would be that would be like a separate problem, more complex one to solve.
So when you say cancel only peer connections, it's only peer connections that can be done in any web page.
In the current page, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. So you basically you have an application where you have remote participants and you want to cancel them so that you don't have like the feedback, so that the conversation can proceed, but you don't want to cancel other audio. You just want to cancel that audio, which is the one that is causing the feedback loops that ruin the call. But all the other local audio doesn't ruin the call. And in some cases, well, you might want to cancel it for privacy reasons, but in other cases, you don't want to cancel it because it breaks the use case.
I see. So maybe the API that I was thinking of would be to say, okay, when you set an audio element as being part of what can be echo cancelled, then everything that is not tagged this way would not be echo cancelled, basically. Meaning, so that would be the other way of doing things. And
yeah, at this point, I'm not. My question is, do you think it's worth supporting these use cases where you want to cancel only remote participants to avoid ruining the call, but not other audio, or and also supporting canceling everything because you want to be more private and you want to cancel everything.
I mean,
That's
if
basically-
the use case seems fine, and if by doing this thing you're able to actually largely improve the quality of the call in the teacher student case, then yeah, it seems okay to try to pursue that.
Thanks, Geneva.
Yeah, so if I understand the use case, the problem is you have a music teacher that's singing or playing guitar,
Yeah.
and you want to cancel other people talking over them, or singing at the same. Well, I mean, the singing is not going to work out, but I do understand. I think, and I think it might seem useful, and I think I might want to bike shed a little bit on the names. Like instead of default, I think on might be a better value.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even. This is not even a concrete
Right.
idea proposal. I'm
Yes.
more interested in saying, okay, so should we pursue this use case so that we have a way to decide to let the user agent decide what to cancel, so that the application can
Right.
support the preferred mode depending on their use case, and yeah, then we can decide the exact API shape, and if we want to
Right.
pursue this with an enum or with some other property or with something somewhere else.
Yeah, I have to confess, I'm not super into how we implement echo cancellation today, so I'd like to check with some other people at Mozilla too. But I don't see a problem with this. I guess the only thing, trying to figure out what audio comes from peer connections is something I guess the user agent already knows a little bit about. But I could imagine if you pass it through web audio or do some processing, it becomes a problem even today. So maybe that's an edge case we don't have to worry about. Thanks.
Good. So I guess then the next step is that I will prepare, like, given that I see that the use case, that there's interest in solving the use case, then I'll prepare an initial proposal that we can iterate on.
Probably in media
Yeah.
capture extensions, I guess, not in media capture.
In extension, yeah, we can do it in media capture extensions, yeah, and depends on how the end the final solution ends up looking at. But yeah, I can start in media capture extensions with a proposal there, and yeah, I'll write a PR, and then we can send it for review, and then we can iterate there. That's okay. Good. So yeah, so okay, that's what I have about this. Then there's another one which is current time.
Okay,
That's you, Ben.
hopefully this one will be short. So we talked with some web developers, and they found an issue. It was causing a real interop issue, and which is the definition of current time. And current time currently is saying like it's a non-negative integer, and the value is incrementing linearly in real time. I looked at Safari and Firefox. So current time is incrementing for every event loop, basically. But Chrome, on the other hand, is only incrementing current time when a new frame is retrieved. So if you're doing like 5 FIPS, 5 frames per second, then it will be current time will be incremented 5 times per second in Chrome. And the website was using a change in current time as a way to detect that there's a new frame. And of course, then in Safari, it was like very busy. So it's a real interop issue. Hopefully we can align user agents in terms of implementations. I'm hoping that Chrome would be able to update. It's looking at the spec, to me, it seems to induce that Safari and Firefox are implementing the spec, and Chrome is a bit further away. So my first question is it okay to say, okay, Safari and Firefox behavior is the expected one? And the second question would be, if so, should we make the spec clearer, or is it clear enough? Thoughts? Yeah, Guido?
Yeah. My initial impression is that that actually this is a Chromium bug. But I have to double check everything. But in principle, if I remember correctly, Chromium had a couple of bugs related to the video element, and this might be one of those. And I read the spec, and it sounds like it should work the way Safari and Firefox are implementing it. So I think a good next step is to file a Chromium bug, and then we can look into it and
Okay.
experiment if
Would-
necessary.
Would you be able to file a bug, or is it better if I do it?
Well, if you file it, then that's
Hmm?
that's better because it's
Okay. Okay.
you don't run the risk of us forgetting about it, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
file a
something
bug.
it's something we are willing to initially treat as a bug and see if we can find a line with with Safari and Firefox. Yeah.
Okay. So the resolution is that Safari and Firefox behavior is correct, and that Chrome should update, and there's no need to update the spec because the spec is clear enough about it.
Yeah, I think the spec text is okay. I just
Sounds
need to check. I just need to double check that if Chrome is really how bad it is, what the delta is between Chrome behavior and the spec. But,
Okay, and I'll take an action item to file a bug then on Chrome and mobile. Okay, sounds good. And we are a little bit early. That's good.
All right, so WebRTC encoder transform. I think that's you again, Johan.
Yeah. So we have an API that allows a receiver to request the sending of a FIA request, full intra request, so that the sender sends a new keyframe. So there's an algorithm, which is the send request keyframe algorithm, and synchronously when this API is called, the promise should reject with invalid state error if the depacketizer is not processing video packets. And it's being implemented in Safari and Firefox. And there's a WPT test, which is part of Interop 2025. So that's why I actually looked at it. And it's showing that Safari and Firefox interpret the spec differently. Safari is just saying, okay, if the transform is tied to an audio receiver, there's no point in filing a full intra request, so we reject, and it's very simple. Firefox, on the other hand, is trying, I think, to do something a bit more subtle, which is mean it will try to reject for audio, but also if the transceiver is inactive, and maybe in some other cases as well. I'm not exactly sure. So I think it's good that we align user agents, and it seems that we should probably make the spec clearer there. Next slide. So the proposal is to go with option A, which is Safari behavior, make the spec clearer, change the WPT test. The rationale is that A is the original intent. I wrote the initial draft, and one reason is that the check is synchronous. So the check that we are talking about there is happening in the worker thread. So you don't have any access to the transceiver state. You don't know whether it's inactive, or you don't know whether when you schedule a task to actually generate the full intra request, the state will have changed. So it's very racy anyway. And we also have WEBRTC stats, which allows to know whether after a few seconds a fear was sent as well. So maybe it's not that needed anyway to reject asynchronously. So yeah, I would go with option A, which does not mean that we can update the spec to have an in parallel step. So asynchronous check that the transceiver is inactive at the time we are actually planning to send the full intro request, but it should really be a follow-up and it should be in a different place. Thoughts? Yep. Harald? You're muted.
The nice thing about rejective part of audio receiver is that that's a constant for the
Exactly.
property, so it will never change. So we don't have to worry which one has it. I do agree that the inactive transceiver thing is more problematic, but I don't think we can reject that synchronously. If it's rejected, it has to be async.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a different discussion, whether we actually want to reject asynchronously in inactive state.
Actually, I don't see much of a point in rejecting a request for request for a keyframe. I mean, it might
I don't
be
have a
lost,
use case.
might fail it, but you don't know if it happened. You don't know why. You don't necessarily ever know if you're going to get a keyframe after you request one.
Yeah, I don't have a use case, but maybe there's a use case. So that's why I'm leaving it open. Yanivar?
Oh, yeah, no, this makes sense to me. I lowered my hand, so I
Okay,
agree that
okay.
the synchronous step in particular means that the intent was probably to rule out audio transceivers, nothing else. And it sounds like the only issue here is the web platform tests are wrong. Is that it?
Well, since Firefox implemented it and thought it was related to processing, I think we should also change a little bit the spec. It will be a tutorial. But what's what I'm mentioning, if the backlightizer is part of an audio receiver, which really means there that it's a const. Yeah.
Because I just see that Firefox is passing all the tests, so I'm guessing that means the test is wrong.
Yeah, the test is wrong. So, there's a PR for it. So the plan would be to make the spec clearer and merge the WPT test change. Yes.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay. That's a resolution. Then next issue.
Yeah, that's me. So add the audio level to RTC encoded audio frame metadata. So we have audio level currently exposed in RTC, RTP contributing source and in stats. But yeah, some developers have asked to have this also as frame metadata because yeah, for some processing it can be useful, or in some use cases it's useful anyway. And if you're using encoded transform, then you can avoid having to poll, get contributing sources, or get stats to get the audio level. And so it will be more efficient, and it also will be more accurate because you would know that the audio level that you see corresponds exactly to that frame being processed. So it's useful for that, and it also allows other potential use cases, like for example, reduce redundancy information for audio frames that have no audio level, that zero audio level. It's something that a developer has mentioned as a possibility for processing using this as part of processing. So yeah, so the proposal is to add this field to audio metadata. Just one.
Overall, it seems good to me. I guess it's both sender and receiver. Sender based on the track data and receiver based on RTP header extensions.
Yes, I guess so.
Sounds good then.
Good. So then the next step would be to prepare a PR for this. Good. Okay, so can move on to the next. Yes, Frank.
We are very early.
Yes.
which is good. We have plenty of time now. Okay. So encoded transform and S-frame. So we started, or I guess Chrome and in the working group started end-to-end thinking about how to support end-to-end encryption on the web. And when we started discussing about the WEBRTC encoded transform proposal and so on, my understanding was that the script transform is a short-term solution for end-to-end encryption, and it's okay. And we're seeing that it works, so that's good. And S-frame transform would be the long-term solution because it would be simpler. You do not redo encryption, you do not redo parsing, which is error prone and so on. You do not have to deal with, or you could reduce the management of keys and so on. So it's great, and we're seeing that MLS is getting some traction as well. So there could be integration with MLS as well. So it's something that would be there, and also more efficient because there's less data copying, less JavaScript, and so on. So that was the initial plan. So where we are now, well, the S-frame format is finished, so it's great. S-frame packagization format is on the way. It's a draft. It's an IVT core draft, and it needs to be finalized. And the script transform has shipped, I guess, in all three browsers as well. And we are seeing some convergence there. So we're close. And we have a S-frame transform that is specified, that did not ship anywhere. There's a prototype in WebKit, which I hope to refresh at some point to match the latest spec and hopefully exposed to the web. Next slide. So yeah, we made progress, but we are not yet at the end goal, which is end-to-end encryption using like native implementation and so on. So how can we make progress there? So it seems to me that a good first step is to finish the packetization format itself. So there's a draft, which is here, edited by Peter. I don't know if Peter is there, but I'm sure he will be happy to get reviews. So I'm planning to do one. Okay. So I'm planning to look at it, and I would very much encourage everybody to have a look at it, and maybe Peter will be able to share what is missing there in this meeting. We also need to improve the WebRTC encoded transform spec. When we design the S-frame transform, the S-frame packagization format was not there, so there was still some uncertainty, and we need to find a way to have script transform and S-frame transform work well with this packagization format. And we also need to implement specs, so which means S-frame transform, for instance, and the packagization format. So is now the time to do more in that area? I would say yes, for a few reasons. So there are a couple of slides next, which are diving into some issues, and hopefully we can work on that and make progress there. Yeah, Richard.
Yeah, so just briefly on this question of interest, I am here partly because like we WebEx are interested in using a string transform for end-to-end encryption in encrypted WebEx meeting with our web client. I think some of you on later slides will get into some of the issues we have. We'll have probably a couple other issues, but yeah, we're interested. And I've also talked a bit with Discord, who are using WebRTC and Frame Encryptor, and would be interested in moving to a string transform as well.
Cool. So there's some energy. There's some ongoing efforts. So we need to coordinate, and hopefully we can make good progress. So next slide. So I filed an issue a while ago, which was, hey, how can we deal with what's the relationship between script transform and the S-frame packetization format? Let's say that the script transform is implementing the encryption itself. Currently, on the sender side, it cannot say, the script transform cannot say, hey, I'm doing S-frame encryption and I want to use the S-frame packetization format if available. So what will happen is that even if the script transform is actually doing S-frame encryption, it's actually the media type packetizer that will be used and not the S-frame packetizer. So which is sad. So we need to do something there. On the receiver side, it's the same. How do we expose S-frame packets? Because we have the payload type, which comes from the depacketizer, which would be S-frame, and we have the media type, which is the type used to select the decoder. And with S-frame, they're not the same. So for script transform, we're exposing a type, which can be either the payload type or the media type. It's usually the same, except when we have S-frame there, and we would use the S-frame packetization. So I think that we need to expose some additional information on uncandid frames, so that for script transform, we are saying, okay, this frame is an encrypted frame, or should use the S-frame packetization, or is coming from, or should be decrypted is coming from the S-frame depacketizer. So there's a draft here, which is just a Boolean. There are other ways to deal with it. Thoughts on whether we should fix that issue? And well, yeah, I see Harold on the queue.
So half a year ago, we had the proposal for adding encoded frames and for manipulating the STP offer answer for encoded transforms.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, we added a property that was saying this is the packetization mode to use.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should. The nice thing about that is that if we have a specific packetization mode for S-frame, then using that encoding format will allow us to add a script transform that is compatible with the S-frame transform, and just have one way of specifying packetizations.
Mm-hmm.
Then the native S-frame transform can just say that we use the packetization format.
So, okay, I think that a global value for the whole transform is better than a single value per frame. So I think that's fine. I wonder on the receiving side, if you're saying the packetization form is that it really means that the content is following S-frame then. And if you receive data that is not coming from this S-frame packetization payload type, then we need to deal with those kind of issues anyway, I guess.
So this would be this is so described really in the script transform additions for handling multiple payload types.
Okay.
And if you have something that's encoded as an S-frame, then it should be negotiated in SDP as an S-frame packetization. So that should all work out in theory.
Okay. So yeah, so I guess that seems very promising, and we should try to revive this effort. I see Richard's on the queue.
Yeah, and I'm maybe a little in cough medicine haze, but and not fully up on this, but like it seems like kind of it seems like we're kind of being path dependent and special pleading here with S-frame, because we've defined this this hack using the script transform to do S-frame, but like in principle you could do a whole bunch of different things with script transform, and things that would impact packetization in other ways. So like it sort of seems like a not principles. It seems like you're a losing game to try and taxonomize all the different things you could do with the script transform. So I wonder if like the answer here is actually to just do nothing with the script transform, not expose this information at all, and say if you want to do S-frame properly, do S-frame transform. And just leave the script let script transform be what it is.
I mean, currently how it's used, it's a hack. I think that once we have a S-frame packetization format and it starts to be deployed, it would be nice if websites migrate to S-frame transform directly. But maybe they will want to first migrate the packetization and still use their older version of S-frame, and then after that migrate to S-frame transform. So I see Harold's proposal as a way to fix the hack a little bit. We don't need to fix the whole thing, but I guess we would be in a better position, and it would help websites migrate. So it might not save you much, but it would help some websites, I guess.
Yeah, I don't have a super strong feeling here. The other concern I had was this kind of dichotomy you have on the slide between do we expose the payload type or do we expose the media type. It seems like that's the having that be either or is not not super helpful. It seems like what you need to expose is actually both of those. You need to like I guess we're talking about what we expose to the script transform here, but it seems like the transform needs to know like this is S-frame, it was sending that packetization, and this is and VP8 payload. So it seems like if we're trying to choose between those, maybe we need to just say both.
Yeah,
maybe a misunderstanding here.
Yeah, that's exactly that. And currently we are exposing the payload type, which is always matching when there's no S-frame, because there's the decoder and the depacketizer, and they're talking the same H.264, VP8, VIP9 language. But now with S-frame, you need another information that, yeah, it's still VP8, but actually there's some encryption. So you need another information, which I put there as a Boolean. But Harold was saying, yeah, it could be a property in the transform itself.
Yeah. And by the way, strong +1 to Harold's point of making some attribute of the transform, because it's just a mind-bogglingly bad idea to switch between S-frame and not on a per packet basis.
Yep, and you can switch off transform. So I agree that it seems nicer. Yonivar?
Yeah, I think most things were said that I was going to say, but yeah, I'm supportive of working on this frame. And I also agree that per frame is probably a bit tricky. And it wasn't clear whether you meant it as a read-only attribute or a settable attribute. But it might be better on the transfer.
So I was thinking of the case where you're using a script transform, and the first thing you're doing is using the S-frame transform as part of the script transform. And in that case, I was thinking the S-frame transform would get a frame whose attribute there would be false, and it would generate a frame whose attribute would be true there. And that would be the way to to actually do things. But anyway, I think that if we can work out, make Harold's proposal work, and being able to use script transform eventually with a string transform if needed, then that's ideal. So.
All right. And my other question was to Harold whether he plans to pick that up, and is that going to work for you, Harold, to do that in concert with this?
I'm certainly working on it. I mean, it turned out that the way payload types are handled in WebRTC needed some major refactoring to make the proposal work. So I've been working on that, and I'm not going to leave it.
Right. I'm wondering if in the meantime we should split out a simpler version where it's more of a Boolean, where it's still a Boolean, but on the script transform or something. Because I know that some of the use cases, like end-to-end encryption was one of the use cases for script transform, but there's also, I believe, add metadata and also the encoded source use case.
Yeah. There are about 4 different use cases that I want to make less hacky because of the addition. So I don't know if we need the Boolean or to pursue them separately. It seems like we don't. I mean, RTC RTP script transform needs the wider capability, and the Boolean would just confuse things, I think.
Maybe we could use an enumeration, for instance, and in the short term, use just one value, because it seems there's consensus on that, and then we can extend the values progressively.
And enumeration, I mean, for instance, all the H264 modes have basically the same packetization formats. Well, they don't. They have 2 different ones. But the list of possible transforms is definitely shorter than the list of codecs. So yes, that's a possibility.
And the semantic of this enum would be like, these are the things that the script claims that it is doing that you should reflect in the rest of the media stack.
Well, these are the things that it would say basically, and hey media stack, I'm giving you a frame. I want you to treat it like you treat frames of this particular class.
Yeah.
Packetizing and depacketizing.
Like, so maybe the script claims that it's translating from VP8 to H264. Right?
These are the use cases where there's no consensus.
One of the use cases is that where it was imagined when we worked on this was a script transform that would take in L16 and produce Lara.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to say like that's something we should support. I'm just trying to understand the semantic of the signal here.
Yeah. So I think the current proposal is still a pull request on WebRTC encoded transform, and it's not that unreadable.
So is there work on your end to actually restrict the scope of it, or should we just review it and before you work on it?
I think the proposal is still that's my camera going out of focus, not me. I think the proposal is still the one I want to support, and it's just taking a while to get the implementation right, or get the infrastructure to support implementing it that way.
Okay, I guess so. The action item might then be for editors or anybody interested in looking at the proposal and commenting there, so that we can converge.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Next slide then. So we have the same thing with SRAM packetization and SRAM transform. When SRAM packetization format is negotiated, what happens to SRAM transform on the receiver side? If it's receiving non-SRAM, oops, no, going back, possible. Yeah. So if the receiver is getting packets that are not SRAM, should SRAM transform be aware of it, and so on. So I guess there's the same thing for the sender side. If you're setting the SRAM transform, is there automatic selection of SRAM packetization and so on? And what happens when SRAM packetization format is non-negotiating and you're setting the SRAM transform? What's the model there? I guess part of these issues may be already answered by Harold's proposal. I'm not quite sure. One case where I'm guessing it's not the case is when SRAM packetization format is non-negotiated. On sender side, if you're setting SRAM transform, I guess you're expecting the SRAM packetization format to be used. And if there's no SRAM packetization to be used, then I guess we should drop frames, and maybe we should tell the website that something wrong is ongoing, which would mean we have an error event. So it would be a new animation value saying, hey, you messed up with your config. Harold? You're muted.
I think that SFrame, the SFrame, installing an SFrame transform should obey normal SDP offer answer rules, which means that if you want to send SFrame, then that should be included in your SDP. And if the other side replies that I don't support receiving this format, then you should not send it. So in this case, SFrame SFrame after the transformation is treated like any other codec, I think.
Well, the thing is, when you remove a codec, then the engine will select the next one. But when you set SFrame transform, you can set the SFrame transform before or after negotiations, so you don't really know whether the packetization format will be there until you're actually trying to use it and send packets.
I think we should say that setting SFrame transform triggers negotiation needed, unless you have already negotiated it.
Yep.
So,
from a security point of view, like the thing you want to avoid here is an app thinking that it has enabled SFrame.
Yep.
And its media is not, in fact, being end-to-end encrypted.
Yep.
So, like that, I think that's the property we need to assure. You know, whatever the mechanism is.
Yep. And on sender side, it's I guess dropping frames, and not sending anything, and maybe firing an event. Yonivar?
So I'm a bit concerned that SFrame is not a codec, and I'm worried about when we talk about payload types. Harald mentioned one use case might be to use the script transform to kind of do a software codec, like Lyra or something. In that case, signaling that as a codec makes sense as one of the many codecs that might be negotiated and the user can pick between when sending. But you wouldn't want SFrame to be something the user agent can pick between when sending. You want that to be either on or off, I think. So I'm not sure it fits entirely with payload type here. But
I think that's consistent, though, with what Harald was saying about needing renegotiation, because negotiation is the thing that you use to switch out big things, like
yes,
you know, what codecs are offered.
For negotiation, you will need to negotiate both the payload type for the media type, so H.264 and S-frame, and both will be negotiated. And then the sender, for instance, can choose. And the receiver may receive H.264 or S-frame packets. And then we have to decide whether it's okay to process H.264 content when the S-frame transform was set, for instance. And my understanding is that maybe we should not, for instance. Harald?
On the sender side, we have a very similar case with red, where if you negotiate both red and Opus, you will get, and red is first in your priority list, then you will get Opus encoded in red. If red is later in your priority list, you announce that you're able to receive red, Opus in red, but you don't want to send it. I think for the particular case of S-frame, we should probably say something like the S-frame payload type has to occur before the payload type it's encoding, and it's an error to send it. Or if you can't negotiate that, then you should take it as the installation of the S-frame transform failed.
On the sending side, I tend to agree, yeah, with web frames. On the receiving side, nothing is preventing another peer to send you whatever payload type they want. So it's really up to the receiver side to decide whether they want, for instance, to process non-S-frame packets which were still negotiated.
Yeah, so the risk Richard sketched was a sender having some of his packets sent out in the clear when he expected them to be encrypted. So that's strictly a sender-side risk. I'm not sure how to describe the risk of the case where you say that, okay, I can receive VP8 and S-frame in VP8 in S-frame, and then get something in that is VP8 clear text. I'm not sure what risk I'm describing.
Although the receiver has expectations of what protections were reported to the stuff it's receiving as well.
Yeah, but
so I think it's symmetric. I mean, what I would, sorry, I don't want to jump the queue. So again, I think you're ahead of me.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say that I'm not opposed to adding the ability to negotiate over SDP this stuff, but I'm not sure if we're talking about making it a requirement. In that, it seems to me that the status quo right now with script transform is that endpoints are allowed to transform, do all kinds of things. And if I remember Harald's proposal, the new API is optional. So that might be something to keep in mind here as well. And we don't want to necessarily make it too hard to turn on S-frame.
Okay. I feel that on sender side, we agree about dropping frames. On receiver side, it's still unclear. So at least it seems that we could try to work on a PR to improve S-frame transform integration with the S-frame packetization format, and maybe go back to the working group when we have like a very specific proposal, so that it's getting validated, or even maybe a PR, and then everybody can look at it and provide feedback.
I think I missed my spot in the queue. Like, I would just like to voice some skepticism of this scenario where you negotiate both an S-frame stream and an H.264 stream, right? An encrypted and unencrypted stream available at the same time. Like, I don't think we have any use cases for that. I think it's a tremendously dangerous thing because you get video coming in, you don't know what its security properties are. So I am tempted to just say like that is not a valid thing to negotiate. And I'm not sure how exactly that manifests, but it seems like something to be avoided.
So the S-frame packagization format itself is using a media type. And this media type has to be exchanged between sender and receiver, and it's through SDP. Currently, that my understanding, and maybe Peter can weigh in there, is that it's through SDP that we are actually negotiating this media type that is used as part of the S-frame transform. So currently, my understanding is that for the S-frame current packagization format proposal, we would need to negotiate both an S-frame payload type and also the video codecs or audio codecs, the media codecs as payload types as well. Peter, if you want to.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. We don't negotiate every S-frame payload type separately. We just say it can refer to any other negotiated payload type. But as I put in the chat, one option would be to have some kind of new A line that says, I negotiated these other things to refer to them with S-frame, but I don't want anything that's not S-frame.
That seems plausible to me.
Of course, we'll have to write the correct text to be like, RTX of S-frame is okay.
Or
the right interactions.
So the other possibility would be that in the SDP, the S-frame would have another. Yeah. Well, I guess your proposal is fine. There are different syntactic version of it, but yeah.
And maybe this is something to take over to the ABT core group, because maybe this is just a sign that the current approach we have is not right, and we need to approach different.
World.
Now, one of the fun things with the payload type in the S-frame negotiation or in the S-frame envelope is that it's actually a hop-by-hop payload type. So in the case where you're sending H.264 end-to-end, the sender might use payload type 63, and the receiver might, and the intermediate hop might actually have to change that to payload type 97, because that's the payload type that's been negotiated for VP8 at the intermediate to receiver hop. So it's got some fun, that payload type has some funny properties, but that's really an AVT core matter. The draft has expired, Peter, and I'd like to have the discussion resurface, because we really need to get this done.
There wasn't so much interest for a while. Now all of a sudden it's very interesting.
Yep. We need to keep the momentum, I guess. So
we need to be everywhere, you know.
Okay, I need to drop for a few seconds, but I'll be back.
Well, that's what I call dropping out of the frame.
But on this, like, it seems like you are not muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I needed to send a message, and it's not end-to-end encrypting. Okay. Okay, I'm back. That was quick.
But in terms of action on this issue, like it seems like the outcome I would expect is something like, if you install an S-string transform as a sender, your offer will only have S-frame protected media lines, or S-frame protected streams, and likewise on the receiver side, if you have installed an S-frame transform, then you will only accept S-frame protected stuff.
I would rephrase it as you would only send S-frame encrypted packets, and you would only process S-frame packets. With regards to SDP, then that's another debate. So
do we
yeah,
need to negotiate or something? I mean, for script transform today, we don't need to negotiate anything. So to make it simple, if you turn on S-frame transform on both ends, why shouldn't it work?
I'm not sure to follow, but the point would be that if you're setting S-frame transform, maybe like Harold said, it should have an impact on negotiation. Like, hey, okay, S-frame transform kicks in, so I need to add the lines. If I need to renegotiate, then I will renegotiate and so on.
But we don't require that for script transform today.
No,
And Harold's proposal makes it optional for backwards compatibility, I'm sure, but
it depends. It depends on the property and the attribute, which is not defined yet. But say the script transform has this property, which is, hey, I want to use S-frame, then we could potentially reuse the same mechanisms. In general, it would be great if we could define S-frame transform as a specific script transform and reuse the exact same infrastructure. I don't know if we will be able, but that would be nice.
Hey, I'm just noticing we're adding a dependency on negotiation here, which I don't think existed. So are we?
It depends. If you're setting your transform right when creating the transceiver, then you're good. It's only in the case where you create the transceiver, you negotiate something, it's inactive, and at some point you're saying, oh, I want to send video. Oh, my video S-frame transform is already set, but blah blah blah, and so on. So that's where things would need a renegotiation.
And I think the point is you could still get the hacky way with script transform, but you get better packetization, better security properties using S-frame transform. So even though it's optional, ultimately it could be even surfaced by the user agent that you are in a super secure mode or something.
Maybe if we have a script transform with a new attribute which calls for S-frame, we could try to get the same properties as with S-frame transform natively. I don't know. It could be it could be under discussion.
I'm just thinking the minimal use case here is I don't use script transform. I just create an S-frame transform ahead of sending a negotiation, and I do that on the receiving end as well. That should be all that. That seems like the simplest version.
Yep.
Do we agree that should work?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Provided the user agent is actually implementing the S-frame packetization format. Yeah.
But does that require negotiation? I mean, does that require SDP changes?
Well, if a user agent is implementing the S-frame packetization format, then it can start to decide whether to expose it to SDP or not. And we need to provide the rules there.
So I should have clarified. In simplest use case, would do this out of band and not in SDP.
The rules for S-frame transform should say that. But that's my ITF spec. The missing one.
S-frame transform is not an ITF spec, so.
Oh, S-frame and S-frame transform is S-frame is an ITF spec, and RTP packetization for S-frame transport is an ITF spec.
Yes, but I think we need to build on that, and the more we can put there, that's good. But yeah, I don't know where the line is, but I'm pretty sure there will be something we need to do in WFC as well.
And I do note that setting up your transforms ahead of initial negotiations makes life much simpler. I have always wondered exactly what happens when you try to change transforms midstream for a script transform, and how to write tests for it.
It's in the spec, so there's a mechanism.
Well, the spec says that you should be able to do it. It doesn't say what happens when you do it.
Oh yeah, it does. It does say you cancel pipe 2 and you redo another pipe 2 and so on. So it says how it's supposed to work. It's implemented in Safari. So we can write test there if we want to.
That's a different topic. If we find that it's too complicated or too risky to switch between S-frame and non-S-frame modes, one option is just to say that if you want S-frame transforms, install them before you negotiate.
Yeah, that's something we could probably do in the setter. Like there's a transform setter, and we can add additional rules. It's currently not there. So I encourage everybody. Maybe Dom will do a great work at scribing everything that was said, but I would encourage everybody that had thoughts to write on this 2.14 GitHub issue, and I'll try to prepare something there. Next slide. So now, so we have made, let's say that we have solved and we have made sense of S-frame packetization format and how it's interacting with transforms and so on. Currently, the encoded transform model is per frame, and S-frame itself can be used either per packet or per frame. And it's in use in WebEx. It has some advantages, and I'll let Richard finish the slide, maybe, if you want to.
Yeah, sure. And I apologize. I think I was supposed to provide you with some content here, but I've been under the weather the last few days. So yeah, this is, like I said, we're trying to figure out how to bring the end-to-end encryption we do in WebEx to the web clients. And the main kind of impedance mismatch we have is the level at which the S-string encryption is done. We do it in WebEx per media payload right now for a couple of reasons. One is that it's just simpler to start with, as opposed to having to change the packetization format and everything. You can just basically insert it in an S-string call right next to each SRTP call. It's another protection layer, and off you go. But on a more substantive layer, especially for video, it lets, doing S-frame per frame means that if you lose, you get the whole frame at once out of the decryption layer, which means that if you lose any packet that's part of a frame, you lose the whole frame. And it means that you can't start processing any of the frame until you've gotten the whole frame. So both of those, those efficiency benefits or pipelining benefits, being able to start processing the frame before you have the whole thing, and being able to use subframe units for things like loss concealment. Those are kind of both salient to us. It seems like they might be salient to other conferencing folks. So yeah, the proposal here would be to support that per packet S-string and something, I think it would make sense to do it in S-string transform. You could do something like add a Boolean flag that says apply this, in the options, it says apply this per frame instead of, or per packet instead of per frame. I think we could update the packetization spec. We probably want to signal it in similar ways to the per frame S-string, in the sense of saying this, this packet is, an S-frame encrypted media payload with this codec inside of it. And so we would want to, signal it somehow, update the algorithms to be, to clarify, that you encrypted this different layer, and then probably update the SDP and RTP definitions to accommodate this additional framing. So that's the off the cuff proposal. Curious what people think of this as a possibility.
Yeah. So this is another slide.
Oh, okay.
Next slide. Okay. So yeah, there are various ways to support it. For instance, we could say that script transform should be able to implement per packet S-frame, even though that might not be what WebEx will want at the end of the day. That's one possibility. So there's an example there of how it could be done, in terms of API at least. We could also decide that no, WebRTC Transform is really per frame, and it's too difficult. and we leave it to the WebRTC RTP transport API, which would mean that maybe we would need to implement something else. I'm not quite sure. Or we could use a new entry point in WebRTC pipeline, still using the S-frame transform construct. Say, for instance, hey, S-frame transform is per frame. Here are the keys, but under the hood, it would not process things between encoder and packetizer, but after the packetizer, for instance. So it could be a new entry point, which in terms of spec might be the RTP transport API entry point. So generally, the general question to the working group is whether we want to support per packet S-frame in websites, and whether WebRTC encoded transform model, the WebRTC encoded transform is a good fit for per packet S-frame packetization, or whether we should do something else. Thoughts?
Just a quick correction on the top, the first bullet there, RTC encoded frame. I don't think there would be any need to talk about frames here, because in a stream transform, it's all you're not exposing frames to JavaScript, so you would not need to annotate this.
Sure, but in the plan was to say, okay, we have an encoded transform model. We should be able to use it for S-frame per packet S-frame. And so one way of thinking about it is what we need to expose and what we need to do at the script transform API level so that it's implementable in JavaScript. And then if you can implement it in JavaScript, S-frame transform can certainly implement it in a better and more efficient way as well. Yonivar?
Yeah, maybe I'm being too naive here, but if we leave script transform alone for a bit, it sounds like on the S-frame transform object, whether this happens at the packet level or the frame level seems the same to JavaScript. So couldn't we just have a constructor switch?
Yeah, that would be the S-frame transform options per frame equal to. That's working.
Oh, okay.
Yes. That's
Thank
working. But in terms of spec, in terms of implementation, that would work. But in terms of spec, the current model that we define is that the encoded transform is between the encoder and the packetizer.
Yeah, thank you. I just missed the second line of your code example.
And the spec is defined this way. And for S-frame transform, somehow what you're doing is you're doing encoder, packetizer, like HTTP packetizer, then you have packets and you apply the S-frame transform. So it's per packet transform somehow. Well, sort of. Peter wants to talk, so maybe he wants to correct me. Peter?
I was just thinking that the API might be a little more complicated than that, because if you can use either per frame or per packet mode, then you might have to offer both and receive either and that kind of thing, or offer only one. Right. It's a little more complicated if it's in the SDP offer answer.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it might be an option in the SDP, Boolean, maybe. I don't really know.
It's a bit like our bundle and our TCP things. You have to say like, this is optional or this is required, that kind of thing.
Yep, Yonivar.
Well, this is why earlier I wanted to get some clarity to see if we're adding a dependency on that we must negotiate this. And so my minimal use case, I think, would still be to do all this out of band. And so that we don't, if we additionally then add SDP stuff later, that sounds good to me, but I don't see why we have to block on it. And in that case, you would simply say that, if you set per frame, or let's call it per packet, perhaps might be better. Because otherwise, if you set per frame false, not clear what it is. If you do that correctly, then things work. If you don't, then don't do that. It just seems a lot simpler than the full complexity.
I mean, both would work in practice. That's my understanding. But it's really the question I have here is we have a model, like the encoded transfer spec is built around the model, and like if you look at implementations, current implementations of the pipeline, and WEBRTC has an entry point, which is there, and are we fine actually to support per packet? Are we fine with another entry point, which will introduce complexity, a bit more complexity maybe? It really depends. And are we okay with adding this cost to the encoded transform spec as well? Or are we okay with keeping the encoded transform model somehow of doing per frame thing, but it's after that you split things in packets and everything is good, meaning like you do the S frame per packet transform on sender side on the frame itself, and then the packets are sent magically as they should with the right split. So the S frame packetization format receive per packet S frame encrypted content, but is doing the splitting itself, and so on. That's where I'm very fuzzy, and it would be good to have more thoughts there. I was hoping that maybe implementers like Harold or Guido might have some thoughts.
Well, just I do think I think we are supportive of having it switched, at least.
Mm-hmm. So you're supportive of supporting per packet S frame and having an API, and ideally in S frame transform.
Yes.
Fixing it for script transform is might be a bonus, but it's not mandatory.
Yes, well, I think that's the right place to start with a simple use case. I'm not opposed to, I know that there's a lot of complexity here, but, and I'm not opposed to solving that complexity, but it's not clear when we're discussing it if we're blocked on the complexity or not.
Yeah. Okay. Harold, you're next.
Harold, you're muted.
Yeah.
Always forgetting to unmute, sorry. I'm not supportive of mixing these things. I think that trying to shoehorn a per packet thing especially into the script transfer model is asking for pain. If we want to do per packet things, then we should hammer out something that can be implemented for the WebRTC transport API, which is focusing on the packet use case. When it comes to the S-frame transform, I'm not so critical, but I don't think we should try to implement this with a switch. We should implement it by defining a new transform called S-packet, and let it evolve its properties separately.
So if I summarize, you're closer to the third point, use a new entry point in WebRTC pipeline, probably RTP transport API entry point that we're trying to define, and maybe not using S-frame transform construct with a switch, but having like an S-packet transform new construct.
Yeah. I think that's a simpler way to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, maybe I have a naive view here, but if we were to draw a diagram of the sending pipeline and the receiving pipeline, is it not possible that you could have S-packet? Well, let's talk about the receiving end. And if you're receiving something, could you have S-packet de-encryption and then still support script transform for other purposes? Or does that abstraction not work in a sort of simple whiteboard diagram with arrows?
I would think that if you're doing so with S packet, the thing would be you receive a packet, you detect that it's S frame, then you decrypt it, and you pass it to the H.264 depacketizer, which gets all the packets, generates an encoded frame, pass it to the script transform, which passes it to the decoder, which passes it to the track, something like that.
Cool.
So the question, so Harold, when you say I'd like a new S packet, it would still be an S packet transform, meaning that you would say sender transform equal S packet, or would it be a completely different API?
I think that that you could define it in terms of the transform API, because the upper side might be the same. That is the interface to the encoders and decoders and so on. The lower side that faces the network will be different.
Mm-hmm. My intuition is that S-frame transform and S-packet transform will share the same error mechanism, like the same events and so on. So
Yeah, they'll have largely the same API in terms of errors, but also in terms of being able to add and remove keys over time.
Exactly, yeah, ratcheting, keys and key management. So
I have absolutely no objection to making the interface similar, but I definitely would like to consider them as separate constructs.
why?
Not that something that is slightly twisted towards one or the other.
I think that's a fair bike shed point in that, you know, a constructor with a Boolean versus two constructors. Yeah, I think that's something we can figure out.
Well, that's the thing I'm trying to understand is whether it's the model below or whether it's the API shape. Yeah. And I'm still not sure.
I'd be happy with either. I don't have a strong opinion.
Well, we could have S-packet transform derived from S-frame transform as well.
Sure.
Or the other way around.
or mixing interface. Yeah, where you probably mixing interface would be the way to go. That way we would only specify the method in one place. That's fine too. Okay.
I mean, I can see the appeal of just in terms of spec writing of having separate things, just because the algorithms will be, will diverge a fair bit.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any other? Is that what you want to discuss here?
Yeah, I was. My last thought is that it would be much simpler if we were having the S-frame packetization being codec specific. That way, we would keep the model of the encoder, the transform, and the packetizer. And the packetizer would be responsible for doing H.264 packetization plus encryption, for instance. And there, the model would be much simpler. In terms of implementation, maybe so maybe that's something we should consider a bit more, because that would make the transform model somehow clearer there.
Do we have? Could we file an issue on this, and maybe we could continue discussion on the issue?
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right, we have 10 minutes.
Yep.
No other business.
So next slide is probably wrap up. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think unless we have anything else to discuss, I guess that's it. Any final thoughts? All right. Thanks, everybody, and see you next month. Bye.